You be with us, you bless the activities that we are going to do. And God, even as we begin this webinar and this training, may you be with us. Let us focus. Let us be open-minded to learn and to unlearn. And let us be able to take back the learnings to our institutions that have graced us with jobs or with opportunities, and also make us better HR practitioners so that people can rely on us to be able to give the right guidance and the right experience to them. We thank you for the opportunity. We know that, God, people are busy with many other activities, but thank you for giving us this opportunity to be together. I pray this believing and trusting in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. So the recording has started. So I would like to put it out there and say, what are your expectations for today? And what were your takeaways for yesterday? Expectations for today, takeaways for yesterday. Anything that really drew your attention? Anything? Feel free to unmute. Effective problem solving. We learn some skills. We'll highlight, what it is. Anything that you would like to share with us? Anything? Frida, anything that really jumped on you yesterday?
Yesterday, I think we learned about crisis management. One thing I learned is it's important that we be prepared in our organization in terms of having to manage whatever crisis that may come, so that our functions will not be disrupted. There are quite a number of things that we learned, and really I learned a lot from yesterday's training. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Silas, anything that really drew your attention?
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. I think I was rehearsing managing crisis because I've managed so many crises in my career. I am now how many years in this field of the tea industry? From 1992 up to now is about 29 years. So I have managed various crises. And yesterday it was a rehearsal for me. But one of the key things that I learned from yesterday was setting up a crisis management team. I think even when there's no crisis, one should be able to have some sort of team in place.
Exactly. And that's what we see.
Crisis occurs also, you can change that team so that you really match the skill sets of the people so that they are able to manage the crisis properly. I remember differing with the presenter that, the CEO doesn't have to sit aside. Sometimes the CEO becomes the leader of the crisis management team. And we all agreed that managing crisis, it depends on the circumstances. Which circumstances are you faced with? Then you can be able to make a decision on how to make the team. So that was good. And I think what we have is contingent plans in our organization. But we have not put up a crisis management team that was done by all the time. So that I'm going to implement. I think once the notes are shared, I think I'll be implementing that just to boost our contingent plans. Yeah. Thank you.
And some, yeah, I like what you're saying is that you might not have a team in place, but what happens is that you know who would be head of that crisis, you know, and of course management takes lead, but who would, if you form that crisis management team, then definitely, you know, if this kind of a crisis was to happen, the experts and the people who would be able to drive it and completely be immersed in that crisis. You already know them in your head, but how about now creating a flow chart and making sure that you have a process? We don't know what kind of crisis we would get into, and nobody wants to get into crisis. And that's why it just really seamlessly now converges with our topic for today, effective problem solving. You know, you have a crisis. Nobody wants a crisis, either at organizational level, even at your own personal level. You know, is a crisis a problem? Is crisis essentially a bad thing? How should we handle it? What should we anticipate? And one of the things I keep on saying, and that we always emphasize to HR practitioners, is that we don't map up risk hard enough. That's, you have a recruitment policy. What are the risks that can come with your recruitment policy? You have an employee wellness policy. What are some of the risks that can come with it? You know, your strategy should actually outline all the risks and how can we mitigate those risks. And it makes it easier. Then you have a fallback plan, you know, your business continuity plan. We can talk about that around 2 years ago when COVID was first announced in China. You know, we thought, well, it will end there in China, but now it's it became a global crisis, and things had to be put in place. Now we talked about the new norm. Now we are back to normal, whatever that means. There's still a lot of work to be done. So some crises we ought to know that they can be global crises. Some crises can be a national crisis. We could have an organizational crisis, we can have a departmental crisis, we can have an individual crisis. So and then how do we resolve that? Yesterday I was reading the newspaper and I was totally alarmed because I really love blue ocean economic activities. And then we have all this the ship that has come from India, and that they have toxic waste in that ship. They think that they can come and dump it in East Africa. And they say that the ship is carrying hardware materials, padlocks and everything. But well, I think it was arrested, whether it's true or not. To a certain extent, if it has hit the national headline, we have a crisis. And that crisis means that crisis is long-term. If those materials were to be dumped into the ocean, what happens? We have seen what happened in Japan. Those toxics, really, after many years is when we will discover, wow, it is because of that dumping that was happening. So how do we look at short-term crises that really can have, short-term things that we can do that can really have long-term effects, and then there will be a crisis in the future. So thank you for that. I think it's more of learning, and it's what can we do to make sure that we are aware of these things, and what kind of policies can we put in place. Wow, nice, yeah. So we'll continue for the next 2 days. I'll engage you. Allow me to indulge you to always unmute and share your experiences. That's what really makes it very interesting and very nice. Welcome, Betty, to this webinar we've just about to begin, for us to be able to move on. So when you look at problems, you know, there are many problems. Christmas is coming. It's a problem. People have to shop. People have to travel. There's a problem of bus fare being increased from this amount to this amount. You know, the shortage of whatever. What's a problem when we think about a definition of a problem? And is problem necessarily a bad thing or a good thing? Problem. I have a problem. There's a problem in our organization. There's a problem in our family. When you think about problems, what's the definition of a problem? problem? Silas, Betty?
What's our problem? Something that is not conforming to the norm.
Exactly. Something that is not conforming to the norm, something that is making us uncomfortable, shift from our comfort zone, shift from the norm of what we know. It comes and causes disruptions and causes pain and causes anguish around. There could be some really small problems, there could be big problems, and everybody considers problems of different magnitude ranked differently. I might have a debt of 1,000 shillings and I'm not being able to pay. That is a big, big, big problem for me, because the person who lent me the 1,000 shillings is at my beck and call all the time. Catherine, where is the money? I'll take you, I'll report you, and it's causing me a lot of anguish. Someone can have a debt of 1,000,000 shillings and they are not losing any sleep. 1,000,000, I'll pay it. I have a plan to pay it. Someone might have a debt of 100 million and it's loose change for them. So it just depends, and we can't invalidate people's problems, big or small. And that's the same in organizations, small problems, big problems, and how do we actually just react to those problems? National problems. Does the government have the urgency and the goodwill to be able to solve those problems quickly for the citizenry, for them not to complain, and for them to know that they can trust the government to solve problems as quickly as possible? And sometimes we have everything, we've planned everything, but all of a sudden, we didn't see that curveball coming. Let me make a very bad illustration around the national elections, because it's something that we need to be aware of. And as HR practitioners, what are you doing next year to provide a good platform of non-partisan participation of your people? But that there will be talks on the corridors of who's supporting who. And what happened in 2007, 2008 elections is that we didn't anticipate the violence. There was a big problem in the country. We've learned from there, and many things have been put in place, reforms that have been done and things like that. But as HR people who are the centerfold for making sure that we also participate in ensuring that people conduct themselves with decorum, that there is no strife within the organization, are you going to issue a policy statement? We were on a roundtable discussion with other HRs and say, next year is coming, and what is our responsibility as HR? Are we going to issue policy, a statement, a holding statement saying, we work with people, we understand it's their democratic right and civic duty for them to go out and vote. Some might even want to vie for seats. What are you doing around that? Silas, Betty, Frida? Is it a problem, or is it something that if you're a top person, one of your critical positions, the job holder says, I'm going to vie for elections, what are you going to do? How are you going to support them?
I don't know whether I should go first, but for us, what we have done, Catherine, one is that I've done a memo to all employees, and the Sasini as a group has done a memo to all employees that we will remain apolitical. We're just a working outfit. So if anybody wants to go and vie, they should resign from employment, and the company will have nothing to support him or her in their endeavors. But we will not allow politicking in the company. So that is the stand of the company. So whoever wants to do politics resigns and leaves employment and doesn't come back.
Mm-hmm.
That's our
And
question.
doesn't come back. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Someone else? Someone else? Okay. I remember I worked in an organization where we looked at it very critically around what are people's aspirations, because people have different aspirations. Sometimes even when you work, you have a business that you're very passionate around, you are growing, you're growing it on the side. That's the typical human nature. And it's not just a Kenyan thing. If you work worldwide, people have, they would want to supplement their income, and that's the truth of the matter. And we should not deny people that right, as long as there's no conflict of interest that can cause a problem. You'll notice that I will always use the word problem because this webinar is about problems. So we decided that if you want to engage in politics, we'll actually give you time off to go and a real progressive organization is that we'll give you time off. There were two people who wanted to vie for elections. We looked at their performance. We look at what they would do for us if they won those seats as an organization, pushing our agenda, not winning favors. No. Pushing our agenda, our primary being of being a business. What would they do for us? Would they do it because they have good performance, they were very committed and loyal employees? Would we entrust them that they would push our agenda that was helping the government also advocate for that? And we said, yes, I think it's a good way. Like what Silas has said, our policy was, you want to vie for elections? Thank you very much for serving with us. Please put in your resignation and all the best, and we hope that you will win. We changed the narrative around, how about a good performer wanting to go, will you push our agenda? If you get to the legislation point, we felt that that was important. And it was very different. The first people thought, what a caring organization we are, that we can let people take a sabbatical, go vie. If you don't win, come back to your position. Does it cost the organization? Yes, it does, because either we have to pay an acting allowance and or bring in another expert or something like that. But two things happened, is that we had a shift in terms of growing our employee engagement and commitment. At the same time, we knew that we were going to advocate for that. And what happened is that because now those two people went and they didn't win, unfortunately, they came back, is that they had made a name for themselves with these other opponents and say, even if you win, I want you to push for us this agenda. Did we see that agenda being pushed in a way that brought results to the organization and we were able to increase our funding? Yes, we did. So it just depends on how. But what the statements, like what Silas and everybody else, I'm sure, is saying, is that we are non-partisan. We will not allow politics to be the order of the day. You will hold yourself with decorum and it's work as usual. So it's just different, and how is it going to be? How are we also going to protect our people during the voting day? What is expected of you once you vote, go back home and stuff like that. So those kind of policy statements. So it depends on the organization. It depends on what the risk factor, how far you're willing to go in some of these national civic duties and how you want to align yourself. So there's no right or wrong. But of course, everybody says, please resign, even from the civil servant, please resign, go and buy. If you can apply back, if you're a good person, if there's a position, we'll welcome you. If you are not a good person and you didn't perform well, definitely you know that is not going to take place. Okay, great. So just to put us in the highlight of a problem and how it will be, that's not a problem, that's something very different. But I brought it from the fact that in 2008, we got into a big problem as a country. We resolved, and for us, some of the lessons that we learned from that violence and some of the rules that were made, how would we contribute to the national political environment without causing any strife to the citizens. So this is where we are. This is what we'll be discussing for the next 2 days, and I'm sure we will enjoy the webinar as we go along. Any question? Any input? Any suggestions? Thank you, Betty. Sorry, I can't participate verbally, but I remember one staff wanted to vie for a position and was forced to resign from the organization because of that. Yes, yeah, of course, yeah. Very, very true. Okay, great. Okay, so let's move on, and feel free to stop in or just to interject. So what is problem solving? We've already had a problem, the definition of a problem, and in organizations, there will be many problems. There will be small problems. There will be people having differences. Is that a problem? If it escalates too much, it becomes a problem. Are they able to solve it at that level between the two of them, or even just call the supervisor or someone of their peer and be able to resolve it? That's well and good. That's not a problem. But if it's problems that escalate and we need to pay attention to them, where now the rubber meets the road, So what we need as HR practitioners or just professionals in any field to be able to solve problems. And it's one of the key pillars of leadership. When you map up your pillars of leadership, is one of the key competencies, ability to solve problems. Identify and solve problems in the most effective way that can be felt in the organization. So we define problem solving as a process of working through details of a problem to reach a solution. It's a simple day and night. Problem solving may include mathematical or systematic operations and can be a gauge of individuals' critical thinking skills. Some problems are mathematical, some are systematic, how we solve problems, there must be a way. How did this problem come about? What simmered so much until it came to the forefront that we need to address it now? So we need to understand that there is a systematic way of addressing problems, and how can we get these skills to be able to do that? I would like us to remember that it can gauge your individual's critical thinking skills. What is critical thinking? Betty, you can type, you can tell us critical thinking. Yeah, tell Frida.
I think critical thinking.
Yeah.
Is the ability to analyze issues and comprehend a situation and come up with maybe a solution.
Yeah, comprehend the situation and come up with a solution. Welcome everybody else who has joined us. Critical thinking, someone else? We always say you must have the critical thinking is a key element for any leader or for anybody in the organization. What is critical thinking?
And try?
Yeah.
It's an in-depth analysis of an issue with a view of finding a solution.
In-depth analysis of a situation in order to find a solution. Yeah, thanks both of you. Critically looking at it, thinking about it, and piecing all the pieces together to come and say what happened, how is it happening, why is it happening, how did we get here, and really putting on your critical thinking hat and saying, we know we have actually deduced the thought pattern or the process pattern, and for us to be able to get there. So it's important for everybody to be able to be a critical thinker. And for you to be a critical thinker, you must also have a lot of emotional intelligence. How do you, aptitudes of emotional intelligence is a must for everybody. For you to know this situation, I'm supposed to act like this. In this other situation, I'm supposed to act like this. When it is like this, I'm not able to think, and I need to step away from this situation for me to be able to do that. So one of the things that really we must bring ourselves and ask ourselves from time to time, how good is my emotional intelligence? You know, and there'll be situations where you have been pushed to the wall and you throw caution to the wind because you're so upset about that. Nobody is perfect. That's what we're trying to say. And sometimes you'll get, your emotions will get the better of you, but it's important to know that we need to hold ourselves with high regard around people, but we should also be vulnerable. We are not saying that we are robots. We are people made of flesh and blood, but also, so critical thinking really drives you into, when you have aptitudes of emotional intelligence, it drives you to be a real good critical thinker. So what is the importance of problem solving? So we have many organizations. For example, what kind of problems do we face in the organization? Problems. What kind of problems are there in organizations?
Financial problems.
Financial problems. Enough. Is that a problem? It's one of our is lack of enough budgets for doing things. Is it a problem? I keep thinking it's very true. It's a big problem, but is that a problem? From a strategic point of view, it's a big problem. I totally agree. Things from a strategy point of view. Yes, someone else? There are many problems. Let's talk about the strategic problems that we have. And you can find that from your strategy. What are some of the things that can let us not be as competitive as we would want to be? Thank you. Staff motivation, a big problem. Thank you, Betty. Silas, God is calling you guys out because that's how I want us to interact. Naomi, Helen.
I was interrupted.
Yeah.
But ask me again.
What are some of that's okay? What are some of the problems that we face in the organization? We've talked about financial problems. We've talked about staff motivation.
Strikes.
Strikes can be a big
strikes.
problem. So
Yeah.
why would there be labor organization in an organization?
Labor strikes, eh?
Yeah.
Maybe due to some unresolved issues. Yeah. Wages, like the industry, wages is a big catalyst for strikes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Strikes in the organization because of unresolved issues that you promised, but you are not being able to. You are being unfair. Someone else? And sometimes also those things that we refuse to offer is because then we are just complacent, or just thinking that the other people do not deserve it. But we went to negotiate around the table and we agreed, yes, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. Sometimes it is true that we might not be able to offer those things because the environment has changed. All of a sudden, COVID has come, we have no money. People have to understand, all of a sudden, the market share, if in the agriculture, the rainfall was not enough, or the rainfall was too much. We were not able to produce the kind of harvest that we anticipated, and this has happened. Someone else? Problems in the organization? Helen, Naomi, are you able to unmute? There could be many, many problems in the organization. People not just seeing eye to eye because of personality differences, difference of opinion, and it becomes a problem. It just keeps simmering, simmering, simmering. It has to be brought to the attention of the people who are able to resolve that problem. So problems are not bad. Problems make people think critically. Problems anticipate policy changes. Problems will come and tell us that we need to improve this process. So never ever say that problems are bad. Whether it is even individuals having differences, those differences come from what? How our policies are worded for us not to be able to address this issue. So we need to be aware that at the back of our mind, problems really support in the implementation of better policies, better processes, and also maybe come to we've not been compliant with different regulatory bodies, and we need to look at it and say what is happening and what needs to be done. So importance of problem solving. Problems get solved depending on the skills which are this is. They are proactive, responsiveness, and style. Think about your line manager, or even think about your own self. You know, we'll only get problems solved if we possess if we are proactive, we are very responsive, and our management style is that of encompassing people together. There is no definite problem-solving model that works for all given situations and with all management styles. You know, some problems will need us to, it will be a long term, we have to address it long term, especially maybe we don't have enough finances to do everything we've always wanted to do. How are we going to walk that journey of achieving, let's say, we want to become a 1 billion company, and the board has said that in another 2 years, but we are in year 1.5 and we've only reached 800 million. We still got 200 million to go. How are we going to do that? You know, so we should know that there is no solve. How Silas will resolve a problem is very different. Catherine is going to resolve a problem. It will lead to the same thing, that we want to resolve this problem, but maybe the length of time that Silas takes is, and it still gets the problem resolved. How the time taken that for Catherine to resolve the problem is maybe 2 days. Silas will take 4 days. Will it have solved the problem? Yes. Maybe are we going to lose some opportunities from those 4 days? Perhaps yes. But was that the right thing to do? Yes, when we look at it on the hindsight. So let's there'll be stages of problem solving, and at the end of please feel free. Yeah. So what are the stages of problem solving? You know, what is a pattern that we will see in organizations? But even just before we go to the stages of problem solving, how do we feel when we're in a problem? When we are faced with a problem, when we are in a problem, how do we feel? How do we feel? What are some of the feelings that we go through?
Funny. You feel funny?
You feel funny? You feel funny? That's not,
yes, they are confused.
You feel confused sometimes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Stressed.
You feel stressed about it. Yes, very true. There's anxiety, there's confusion. Yeah. You feel fearful because maybe this is something that you have not, you've not handled past. You know, you just feel that things are not working, and sometimes it clouds your thinking and how to get there in terms of who's going to help me, who's on my, you know, What resources do I have to be able to manage this? This is the same feeling that is felt by an individual and also felt by an organization. We know that organizations are people, are made up. So those feelings all come together and say, wow, we don't know problem. COVID has come, we have to put people on half pay. The organization is feeling shaky. Will I be able to survive? I'm a good business and stuff like that. So we need to understand that those emotions that can sometimes cloud our judgment and our thinking. And that's why we need to come and learn the issues of how to resolve problems so that we unmask our eyes and unclog our brains for us to think critically to be able to solve this problem. So thank you for that. So there'll be stages of how we identify problems. You know, the problem has come back at our doorstep. Guys are issuing threats of going on strike. 14 days notice. Is it still 14 days or is it 21 days? I confuse sometimes. I don't know whether it's 14 days or 21 days. Silas? 21 days notice. So 1 day's notice. Well, okay. What have we done? What have we not done? You know, the people involved in this strike, they come together and say, what have we done and what have you done? So there's the problem identification. There is definition. There is the cause of the problem and the symptoms of the problem. We'll talk about all this. There is problem solving, and there is the choice of situation or the alternatives that we would want to take. And then there's consequences or impact of alternatives. You know, when you think about it, let's take a strike notice that has been given to management and to the labor office, for example. So we've identified that there's a problem. The problem is not people going on strike. What is the real problem? That is the overall decision that has been taken by these people. What is the real problem that we'll be facing when people decide to go on strike? What will be the real problem that we'll be facing? Is that people will down their stools and we will not be productive. We will not be meeting our targets. That's one. The other problem is that people will consider us as a poor employer who's not able to issues internally until we are threatened to do something. Another one, isn't it? I'm just thinking, think about what the real problem is. Why we don't want to have a strike. Can jeopardize our brand. Productivity will be hampered. We will flagged off by the labor laws, you know, and we might even be called up for an audit, you know, and people demotivated in the problem. So we identified the problem. And then definition of the problem. We must define the problem, write it down. People going on strike, definition of the problem. What does it? Causes of, will be some of the causes of the problem around our people strike notice. What would be the cause of the problem, causes of the problem? Is it as a result that we didn't do what was expected as usual? Because the other person is always thinking, I'm not going to cede my ground. This is what we agreed upon. And this is what we said. So you on the other side, what are you defending yourself with? What's the cause of the problem? Me, I've come, I'm the aggrieved party. I've come and said, you said that you would increase salaries by 2% at the beginning of the year 2021. You did not. It is now September, the last quarter of the year. Yet you expect me, you don't even communicate. So me, I've identified I've told you exactly what it is. So what's the cause of what's on the other side? How will you be saying what's the cause of the problem? You'll agree that indeed I've not been able to manage. I've not been able to increase the salaries. Are you agreeing to it? Do many people agree to what the problem the other person is saying? Frida?
Sorry, it's
do people
a
tend
network
to
problem.
agree? You're breaking.
Well.
Thank you, Betty. You're breaking, Frida. Thank you, Betty. Maybe poor financial year for the organization has caused this. That's something. Yes, of course. Now you have your position. What's the cost of this problem? You are not saying, indeed, I should have increased. I'm sorry. Here is the 2%. But we are saying, sorry, guys, the poor financial position that we have found ourselves in, us not being able to meet our targets, you know very well that even there is a time that we delay payroll and we have to ask the bank to give us an overdraft is what? So what is the cause of the problem? So you know. And have you been communicating that from time to time? Maybe you have, or maybe you just think, oh, well, they'll understand. People do not understand. People want to be communicated to. But what I'm talking about is that people want to be communicated to. And the breakdown why we have problems in the whole world is because of lack of communication. The other part, and then even when we communicate sometimes, is that ego is so bloated that they don't even want to do what? To talk about what has actually what the other person is trying to say. The other reason as to why we continue to create problems is because of people's use of raw power in an organization. Let's say this business is mine. What can you guys do? I've employed the 8 of you. You either you follow what I say, no matter how bad and impunity how much impunity there is, but because you have nowhere else to go for now, you have to toe the line because I'm the one who puts bread and butter on your table. We could even be working organization, a multinational, but the levels of decision making and seniority is that I take advantage of my position and I say, I am the one, I'm the decision maker. I keep on asking people, are we not all employed in this company? We have levels of seniority. We all respect those levels of seniority, but everybody is important in this organization, from the janitor to the CEO. So how do we make those decisions and make sure that we are feeling that this company belongs to all of us, that there is nobody who is more entitled than the other? So we see how problems actually come into being. We have seen the cause of the problem. Then what are the symptoms of the problem? From here, we say, so what were some of the symptoms? Unmute ourselves, or we can type them out. Symptoms. What are the symptoms of a headache? Why do I have a headache? The doctor will want to diagnose what are the symptoms behind there in terms of you having a headache. What would be some of the symptoms? For example, so that we make it as practical as when we are going out, we can look and say, well, I'm different in terms of articulating and looking at a different way of solving problems. We have the cause of the problem. What will be some of the symptoms of the problem? What are symptoms? Google sometimes can be your friend. What is a symptom? What is a symptom? Symptom. The root cause of that, the real root cause of that. So the symptoms is that, you know, we never just we never, when we are called for a meeting, is that we don't go to address this issue. When we are called for a meeting, even when we go, we do not follow up on the action points. So it continues to simmer, and it continues just to simmer and to simmer and to simmer and to go on. And we are not able to do what? We are not able to articulate the issues as they should be. Is that correct? Okay, great. Alternatives for problem solving. What would be some of the for a strike? Alternatives for problem solving. Very practical. Please someone unmute. Frida. Alternatives for problems.
Sitting down and negotiating with the strikers, and sorting out the problems that is the problem that has caused the strike. A lot of network interference, isn't it? Oof. Yes, Madam Catherine, are you there?
Yes, I love sitting down and negotiating with the strikers. What else? Negotiating with the strikers. What else can we do?
If it's illegal, you just dismiss. You give warning.
Exactly. If it's illegal, you just dismiss.
Yeah.
They just want to play wildcats. What else? Okay, poor work performance. Okay, thank you very much. And then let's now go on to consequences. Would consequences or impact of your alternatives? Would there be consequences or impacts of your alternatives, Silas? If it's you dismiss it and then what happens when you dismiss it?
When you dismiss what? Network is a problem.
Let's say it's you know that this strike is totally not it's different and it's not what it should be, and it is illegal. So what are some of the consequences and impacts of the alternatives that you pick? Because sometimes problems, you say, if this doesn't work, we'll resort to this. If this doesn't work, we'll resort to this.
You know, it has to have some, you need to see whether you have the money to pay them off. Then you also need to find alternative employees. Like in the tea industry, you have to find alternative operators or tea pickers. Yeah.
How easy is it to find alternatives?
Very easy.
Very easy.
We have case examples, like with the region where we come from, people are looking for jobs. You know, we've done a lot of mechanization.
Yes.
And mechanization, of course, has fewer employees. So if you were to go out and advertise that you want placards, 5,000 will turn up. So in our industry, it's very easy to what? To get what? Employees.
To get labor, yeah.
Particularly for blacking, not for machines. Machines is hard.
Yeah, yeah. That's a different skill set altogether.
Yeah.
So if your machine were to down their tools, how would it impact your business?
Oh, greatly.
Exactly. So tell us what you have done.
What we have done is that, one is that we have really established some mechanisms whereby whenever problems occur, they are sorted out very, very quickly. And then we have improved the motivation of these guys, of the machine operators. Some of us are calling them they are lower members of management.
Oh, wow.
So they are not part and parcel of the union. We've given
Yes.
them insurance. So before a person strikes, we really look at the benefits that he or she is going to lose. Because
So
if they want to strike, then we'll be in shit.
Yeah, so you've actually just sweetened you've enhanced their job. You've made them see the value that they bring to the organization, and you've also paid for that value. You know, it's a two-way traffic. I like what I see in some adverts, and pay close attention to what HRs are doing nowadays is that I want this kind of a person. I want a machine operating industry. This is a job. This is what will be expected from you. But in return, this is what you will get. I've seen those adverts and they really hard and saying we've gone a step further of saying, I just don't want your expertise, but this is what you get from this place, that you will be able to enjoy working with us. We are a very people-centric organization. These are the benefits that you will get. This is your growth career. Put it out there in the open. Before even I get to the interview, I already know these people really value me. So it's a two-way traffic. Of course, we know that I bring my expertise, you pay for my expertise. You're not just paying for my expertise now, which you should be paying for definitely, but it's much more. This is also what I will give you so that I retain you and you have made the right decision to join us. So I know those things everybody is putting it in place. How about now your employee, upping your employee preposition and saying, if you come to work with Sassini, if you want to come and work with SEHRP, this is what you get in return. So that's important. Then after that, of course, we know that choice of situation. We had a big thing in this country that choices have consequences. And what are those? I mean, if I take this choice, I'm living with it. What kind of consequences am I going to face? Am I willing to consequences? And of course, if you know that the consequences will be dire, long term, they are not good, then you should not pick those whatever choices. I think we should not just say, oh, choices have consequences. They have consequences. And those consequences, if we can eliminate them, we should not say that really have consequences. We should pick choices that are strong, be able to solve the problem, and they will be able to anchor themselves strong. Everybody will feel that we have done the right thing. Okay, great. So that is the model. Thank you, Betty. Consequences of decision include work harmony, happy and motivated employees, and even persistent in the problem if wants to compromise, which might lead to financial loss to the organization. Yes, sometimes we need to cede our ground as the mature people and say, will this solve the problem? Has this person whom I'm not agreeing with has a better solution to this? Let me agree to it because it brings harmony and it actually solves the problem as it is. So those are the stages in problem solving. I keep on saying some of these things that are here and some of these notes really just tend to propel you to look at your policies a bit further, be able to make your policies more astute and more speaking progressively, so take some of these things and go and reference and say, how does a policy sit? My grievance handling policy, how does it sit? So people come and say, I have a problem, I want you to solve. HR, I have a problem. They at an ESCO meeting or what SMT meeting, whatever you call them in your organization, and come and say, we have a problem. We must have a problem statement. And what is a problem statement? Because When Mayday is called, then we know, oh, there's a problem, let's stop everything. A problem statement refers to the issues that need immediate attention from the decision-making team. Before the team tries a particular purpose, they should be provided with a defined problem statement. You know, there's a problem. People are threatening to go on strike. So the problem statement refers to the issues that need to be one issue, two issues, of course, that need attention of the decision-making team. With that, then they will not be able to identify. So how do we identify and come up with a defined problem statement? We go through it by asking ourselves, what is the problem? Who has the problem, or who is the client, or who is the customer? What form can the resolution be? And we've looked at that from a strike point of view. So we come and say, and we'll be able to look, what is the problem? This should explain why the team is needed to resolve the problem. The problem should be defined in clear terms. Sometimes we are so ambiguous in not wanting to call it out because we are afraid. Catherine's performance is not good, and she's been dropping balls of late, but we don't want to say it as it is because we don't want to antagonize or to make Catherine upset. The other thing is that we are so afraid of saying it as it is because we don't want to spoil the relationships. Because Catherine is aliletwa na boss, aliletwa na board chair. Then also we don't want to call it out because maybe Catherine is one salespeople in the organization, but there's a problem with her, and we are not seeing it. We are just going round and round in circles, and like what we say, we are just pussyfooting, there, putting ourselves there, and we hope that Catherine will come and see and say, oh, I'm the problem, sorry, I will resolve and I will reform. Isn't that what HR feels all the time? Do you feel like that? Kindly, you are on mute. Can you guys hear me? I'm not on mute. Silas, can you hear me?
Yes, you are
Frida,
loud and clear, madam.
Sorry, I'm not on mute. Maybe please check your microphone. Priska, please check your microphone. I'm not on mute. People can hear me loud and clear. Someone can reply to Priscilla, go along presenting, that she needs to check her microphone. And then we come and say, who has the problem and who's the client? Or they're trying to define these three statements,
Madam Catherine, you need to check your internet. It looks to be unstable.
Am I breaking?
Yes.
From time to time, Paul. It's not too clear.
You started very well, but now I see. Me, I've got two internets that I'm able to, two connections that I'm able to fall back to, but I see as if the instability is at your side.
Okay, can you hear me now? Because I've really got.
Yeah.
Maybe what? Yeah. Is it too often that I'm coming in broken?
But check with others, huh? How are they getting you? Because to me, you are breaking.
All the time, often?
Often.
Often.
Yeah.
The rest of us? Frida, am I breaking too much on your side? Helen?
I thought I also had a network problem.
Okay. So maybe out of my video so that maybe it gives me better stability. Is that okay?
Yes, that's better.
That's better. Maybe, yeah. And because also the notes can be heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for that. Yeah. But I like to be on video so that I call out. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's fine.
You can come on intermittently. You show yourself, although we now know you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So I hope that we'll have whatever. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Polycarp. Welcome, everybody. So who has the problem, or who is the client, and who's the client or customer? This needs the solution, and who will decide the problem, who has to be resolved, who has to be solved. Okay. What form can the resolution be? There can be many resolutions that we look, and we have already looked at that. What is the scope and limitations? Is it in terms of time? And many people do not have time. Is it in terms of money? Money is always, it's a scarce resource. Is it resources? Is it technologies that can be used to resolve the problem? You know, is it the different ideologies? This should not be just the end of whatever. Does the client want a white paper, a web tool? You know, some of these things that are rather obvious but not too obvious. What do we want? Do we want to have a brainstorming session for us to be able to resolve this problem? So the scope of limitations can be a lot, is where we find most of the problem lying. Time. Why don't we ever have time? And we know the functions of management, one of them is proper planning, coordination. Why is time always a scarce resource? And we always say, oh, I'm very good in time management. I'll be able to deliver it on time. Time. Are we always having that problem? Polycarp, I've moved you to the panelist list. You can be able to contribute now. Can feel free to unmute yourself. Money, other resources, maybe the buildings that we are in, it's not enough. There is no whatever for social distancing and stuff like that. Okay, feel free to unmute as we go along. So the problem statement. The primary purpose of the problem statement is to focus the attention of the problem-solving team. Fully focus on what it is, because if they've been given by the board, the brief by management, or even the CEO, they should be able to focus their full attention on solving the problem. And the problem solving will be given adequate resources. They should be experts in solving that problem, and they should be extremely objective in solving that problem. Have you ever sat in a committee and you felt people didn't have the capacity or the knowledge or the know-how to solve the problem? What did you do? How did you feel, and what did you do? Someone? Question? If you said
Hi, Catherine.
Hi.
Hi, hope you're well.
Yes, I'm good. Good to connect with you again.
Yeah. So I've been in such a scenario where we were dealing with an issue that emanated from the ground, basically from the plant, but a big percentage of the committee were staff who were usually office staff. Yeah, staff were working from home, so they were a bit detached from the problem, which made it a bit. Basically, arriving at the decision took longer than it should have. So one of the things we had to do was to beef up the committee to include a few staff from the line, which made it a bit easier.
Made it a bit easier. So in what wisdom, Polycarp, and sorry, just to Please, focus on that, is why did you make such a decision to include people really who are far removed from that process, you know, shop floor? People on the shop floor know, you know, when we say vitu kwa ground ni different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Allow me to use a food analogy because I like food. So it was basically a state of comparing oranges with bananas, because we are having an issue at the plant level in a packaging line, yet the staff who are expected to make the decision have been working from home for over 10 months. Yeah.
Yeah, true. And sometimes, and that's why we're encouraging people to go back to the office, because going back to the office will give us that collaboration and ability to solve problems quickly. It brings back the agility and it brings back the creativeness, even just at the coffee pot, Polycarp, you have that project. How is it going? Oh, Catherine, I need one or two of you have 5 minutes for me. Oh yeah, I see you excited about it and stuff like that. So let's as much as possible encourage people to go back to the office. I know there's need for hybrid work and it's well deserved now. We have seen people working together, but working as an individual is not the same as working in a team. The other thing is that we also know there are industries that you cannot work from home. Silas's industry does not allow them to work from home. How will you pick tea when you are seated in your house? You have to be there on the ground. And then people also in factory, in essential services. So we know that there have been industries where even working from home is not possible, but some of the tasks that even if you're an essential office can still be whatever. So keeping in close collaboration with teams to solve problems much faster and much more deliberately than if you whatever. So people who are involved in that problem must be in that committee, whether they are experts or not, whether they will be the ones providing the solution. It must be so that I can articulate the issue as it is. A research worth problem statement is the description of an active challenge. The research worth problem statement should address all 6 questions, and that is
250 pounds.
The how, the when, the where, the why, who. Don't we all ask this question? Who brought it on board? It's Catherine. Didn't bring it. Silas is the one who was managing it from the beginning. I took it midway and he moved to another department. Call him. He's the one who knows the history of this matter. What is happening? How is it happening and how is it simmering? So these questions we should always ask ourselves around addressing the 6 questions with the what, how, where, when, why, and who leads us to making a very good problem statement for the committee to be able to resolve. And I'm not saying that what we're also trying to say is that some problems are very easy to resolve. They won't even need a committee. Some problems are complex. They will need time and resources and energy for us to be able to resolve them. They'll even call for an outside expert, like a consultant, to come in and be able to solve them. But every time when we have even differences of opinion, convergence of mind in an organization, we should be able to say, what is the problem here? And identify it without magnifying it if we don't have to, but really saying, this is the problem. So we are not ambiguous in how we are resolving this problem. That is something that we must be extremely aware that we have to, so that people are able to appreciate the ability to resolve problems, even at a 2-phase level, 4-phase level, bringing in people who are going to allow us. But let's not belabor issues that we can solve quickly and magnify them unnecessarily, because sometimes we just magnify problems, magnify issues. They become problems because we are not really addressing them. How will we address those issues? Addressing those issues is always looking at our culture, the culture that we have in the organization. Addressing those issues means that our values have been well stated and everybody ascribes to them. Addressing those issues means that we have an open communication to everything that we are saying in the organization. Open communication is extremely important. Without trust and openness leads to us having many other problems in the organization. And that's the reality of the matter. Okay. On the other hand, a statement is a problem of a problem is 1 or 2 sentences that outline the problem that needs that is being addressed. So we are not really looking at big things. It's not grand It's that people come late to this organization. That's a sentence. You know, we have a problem. So it means that the factory workers only start working at 9 instead of 8. That window that we are not being able to start work on time means that products are being released later, and the salespeople have no products to take to the market. If we count the 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes wasted every day, we can come up with how much we are losing in terms of productivity. You know, so say that. And why are people coming in late? They're not aware that our work starts at 8 and ends at a particular time. Is it because that they see senior management coming in? Because people model what senior management does. People model what their leaders do. If senior team has strong work ethics, people will have strong work ethics. Management team is open to receiving feedback, then people will always do that. Okay, great. Please feel free to chime in as we move on and give your experiences. So did you know that majority of the root causes of problems are hidden in the system, can be found through research, can be controlled by management, and can be removed through improvements? This is a real powerful statement, is that root cause of the problems are hidden in the system, can be found through research, and can be controlled by management. So that is why O&M continuously is a real organization and methods. It's a real alive factor in the organization. Continuously, we are not saying we are going out problems in the organization. What we are saying is that continuous research, you know, how are people feeling? Staff engagement surveys from time to time, culture surveys, you know, customer satisfaction surveys. Through research can unearth some of the problems that we even thought that we didn't have, but we look at it and say, oh, this is what people are saying. How are we going to research? Thank you, because we are always a learning organization, agile, our communication, listening to the unsaid and to the said. As HR people, we should be very alive to the fact that we should be listening to the unsaid. That forms majority of the communication from our people. For example, hidden in the system, what are some of the problems that can be hidden in the system that can be found through research or can be controlled by management? Please, let's give examples. Feel free yourself. Frida, Silas, Naomi, Polycarp, Helen. To statement, how would you quantify it? Let me know whether my internet is now better.
Not better.
Not better.
In fact, I don't know what you're asking.
Did someone hear what I was asking? Polycarp, did you hear my question? Very good. I was asking what can be some of the root problems that are hidden in a system.
In a system.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, I will try and change my internet to another platform. So now it is 10 o'clock. I suggest that we take 10-minute break and then me also to change to another platform.
Hello,
is there any question? Is that okay, guys? Yeah? Is that okay?
It's okay, Maureen.
It's okay.
Thank you. So 10 minutes break. We'll be back at 1:15. Hello, Dan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I've tried to change to another network. Let's see, was it very bad?
Yeah, from the comments, you got lost sometimes.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that.
But
I
you are
thought-
clear.
Yeah, I hope this is a better network. I don't know why, because my primary network is Safaricom and it's normally very, very good. I'll call them after this. I've just changed to an alternative one. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Very.
Okay, great. Okay. So to give another 2 minutes, then we start. I think we can continue. Welcome back, everybody. If you can hear me, you can raise your hand. And for me, just to know that you're back, it's 20 past in the interest of time so that we also continue. We've got good ground to cover. I hope you can hear me better. Good. Thank you, Helen.
I can hear you properly.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so just before we took the break, I was saying that that majority of the root cause of problems are hidden in the system. The system is everybody, the people, the processes that we use, the processes that we use can be found through research.
6:30.
Silas, you need to mute. Can be controlled by management and can be removed through improvements. And I was just saying, what are some of the things maybe in your organization have you found hidden in the system and really came as a result of maybe constant research that you do? And what have you done to be able to point to management and say that this needs to be improved? That was my question. Anybody who'd like to share? Even you stumbled on that and say, wow, this would have been a big problem had we not just stumbled into it. Or maybe what are some of the things that you've really found out from your employee engagement surveys, culture audit surveys, diversity and inclusion surveys, that really you thought, well, this was not a problem, but actually people have highlighted it as a problem. Let me be able to now sit down and analyze the problem statement and be able to make some key decisions that will stabilize our organization. Anyone would like to share? I leave you with that. Okay, so we can share as we go along. So the problem solving process, the first one we saw was there, we identified the problem, we identified the root cause, we analyze the problem, we draw the conclusion, we make some recommendations, and we must also remember the consequences and some of these alternatives. Sometimes we don't have the alternatives, will also mean that they are very expensive to implement. And maybe the organization does not have money at that time. What can we do to make sure that we are or even resources, because resources are always the problem, always the challenge, not the problem, to be able to implement some of the solutions that we earmark, or some of the solutions that we come up with to be able to solve our problems. So we will look at each in details, in detail. So the problem solving process. So we find the problem without being at all. We should not be ambiguous at all for us to understand. And even the people who are affected by the problem, as we have said, should actually be part of this committee or this team that is going to try and resolve the problem. So as we define the problem, we use our analytical thinking skills to be able to do that. We demystify that there are no emotions attached to it. Even if the emotions will be able to, we've been able to anchor those emotions in a way that they will not cloud our thinking. This is the most important step in the process because it drives the analysis. Defining the problem deals with the facts, what is known to be true about the problem you are dealing with, facts and figures. It challenges the assumptions. What are some of the assumptions that we have, and how are we going to challenge that? Separate symptoms from actual problems. The symptoms. What are the symptoms? How can we be able to eliminate and separate them and put them on the periphery for us to understand and identify the actual problem? Develop the main question or the problem statement. Questions are a very useful way to structure problems. And I said if we really have a big problem in the organization, we have to look at it in a very articulated way for us to be able to solve that problem. Some problems are easy to solve, they don't need all this. But if we are to be known as an organization that allows and manages problems in a way that with the seriousness that it deserves, then we are better placed to make people win our trust to be able to identify those problems. No matter, that like the reference I gave in the morning, if I have a debt of 1,000 shillings, that's a lot of money, maybe to me. Someone might have a debt of 1 million, it's loose change. Or even someone might have a debt of 100 million, and they know how they are going to solve that problem. So with how problems are solved in the organization depends on the magnitude and what the repercussions that are going to be felt in the organization. So identify the potential cause and what causes. And what I'm going to do is that I will ask each one of us at the end of this, the problem solving process, what have you done, or what can you do differently? Or maybe if you have been able to solve a problem, maybe using this process, what led you to think like that? So identify potential causes. We want to take our main question or our main problem statement and identify more specific questions. So it's like people are coming late to work. It's a big problem for the organization. But in there, we want to ask why, the sub-questions as to why are people coming to work. That's our problem statement. Want to find out. But in there, we want to make sub-questions onto why this is it, so that we are able to digest and be able to arrive to a decision on how to solve this problem. Each of these questions can be further broken down into more granular questions, slowly, when it's a big problem, we break it down for us to be able to know how we are going to solve that problem. These questions can then be analyzed. A mutually exclusive, collective, exhaustive list of causes should be used for complete identification of the potential causes. What is it? So that we're able now to allocate even how to prioritize the problem solving in a way that is clear, it's methodical, and also at the same time using the best, using the resources which have been allocated to the team very prudently, Because if we are all over, we will not be able to prioritize and make good decisions for the organization in terms of solving that problem. So analyze potential causes. How do we analyze? One of the questions, once the questions have been formulated, pick one or more of the subordinate questions to address, which is always the easiest way out. Identify the list of data sources that can be used to research your problem question. Seek secondary data first. Time and cost permitting, seek primary data. Develop a work plan and assign a problem question to different members of your team where possible. And why do we do this? So that everybody has the equal opportunity and their expertise can be called upon to be able to solve this problem. Everybody who's been brought to the table has a stake to be able to resolve the problem. And that is extremely important. So where we formulate the questions, who's going to take that question? How are they going to research on it? And the person is held accountable for being able to research and bring solutions to the table. So when we say identify the list of data sources that can be used to research your problem statement, very, very clear. Seek secondary data first. Time and cost permitting, seek primary data. What are we saying by say seek secondary data first? Anybody? What is primary data and what is secondary data? Any thought around it, so that we don't go just reading notes without unpacking them? Any thoughts around that? Polycarp, Helen, Silas, Yato? Your thought process around that?
You know, primary data
Yeah.
is the first-hand information that you gather yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But secondary
Mm-hmm.
is information gathered by some other people.
Mm-hmm. Primary data is you have it yourself. Secondary data is gathered by other people. Okay. Thank you for that suggestion or feedback, reaction. Yato?
I concur with him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can give examples of the primary data. Should be like
Mm-hmm.
interviews, observation,
Mm-hmm.
while books, maybe information materials actually.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So why is it important to seek secondary data first? In your opinion, why is it important to seek the secondary data first? Helen, is your hand up, or it was up when I was asking people whether they can hear me and whether you're back? Which is which? We have said secondary data because we always have the primary data. And that's the truth of the matter, is that we always have the primary data. So sometimes we tend to just work with the primary data without going further to look for the secondary data. Sometimes because we are so pressed for time and we are so clouded for the fact that we want to solve this problem here now and we feel that we have everything. It is always important to go over and above. How much more information can we gather? And we will see that more research and more ability to go out of our way to seek for secondary data is something that actually helps us solve the problem. We thought that we had it all, but how about going to, let's say, your secondary data would be, for example, even going out to the customer who consumes your product and say, what do you think about this? And they might give you information that is totally, you just never thought about it. or even people in another department altogether, because we all collaborate in organizations, they might give you something that is totally different, and you will never have thought about it, because you are the experts, you are here and you are doing that. So that is why take time, especially in problems of a high magnitude, to go out and ask for secondary data. So, and then after you're doing that, of course, you are drawing conclusions. And these are things that you know. So we're just highlighting them for the purposes of really becoming experts in problem solving. After all the primary and secondary data has been collected, it must be sensitized. You know, how are we going to unpack, analyze it, and make sure that it's making sense in the problems that we want to solve. Team members need to develop a common point of view regarding their research findings, so that they should work together to sensitize their finding. You know, how are we bringing it together and how are we unpacking it? A summary of the pertinent data should be developed that incorporates all the research received, especially conflicting views. Why do we sometimes have conflicting views? Even when as a team that is working together, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? That we've been asked to come together and resolve this issue, but even in that committee, we have some conflicting views. Is that a bad thing or is that a good thing? And why does it happen sometimes? Can happen because we are different personalities. Maybe we were brought together, but because of our expertise, and sometimes we don't like to work with each other. For example, we don't work together. We have some unresolved differences from another problem that has not been resolved. Our thought process of this is what I think that should, whatever, I brought the data, this is what it is. And you also have brought your own data, but look at mine, look at this in terms of just different ways of thinking. You know, that's why it is important that the chair of the problem-solving team is firm in making decisions. And sometimes those decisions will not favor everybody, even if we are sitting in that committee. Okay, from host to panelists, let me just do that pretty quickly to enable people just attend. Oh, sorry. So those are some of the problems that we might have in the problem making skill of where we actually come from. So let's move on. The data make recommendations. The data summary should be paired with the problem question. The main problem question should be addressed using the findings and analyzing the potential causes step by step. That exists, make assumptions, but be sure to document them as such. Everything should be documented, and be sure that your answer to the problem question can be substantiated using the data. People always want to see, how did you come to this conclusion? What kind of data did you analyze? How did you deduce that data for you to make this conclusion? So it's always the process of how this problem is being resolved, so that even when it's asked, when people ask in future, how was this resolved? They can always have a point of reference. If audit was to be done, why did you use 2 million shillings to solve the issue of people coming late to work? You're able to show how the resources were used. Why did you put Catherine, Den, and Yato in this committee? Is because of A, B, and C. So remember always to document. And people do not like to write a lot. People want to talk, take action points, come and whatever. So make sure that even as you are going along, someone is actually tasked with the responsibility of documenting and making those recommendations, and everybody agreeing that this is the recommendation we've all agreed to. It is very important when we come out of a meeting, when resolving a problem, and someone else is of a different view, and they go out and say, in that committee, we did not agree. 2 of us agreed, 3 of us did not agree, but because so-and-so is senior to us, they took their decision. So it's important even when all this is happening. Let me take you back for us to really understand. When we are doing the conclusion, when we are analyzing the potential causes, when we are identifying the problem cause, everybody must understand their role and responsibility, and always make sure that if we are all not going to agree with the decision that is going to be how are we going to communicate that as people who have agreed to disagree? What will be our communication out there? Is it a decision that is more painful to the people, that if you come late to work, you will get a memo? And people say, why give people memos? How many memos are you going to whatever? Because we have tried everything and people are still not changing. Maybe with consequences, punitive consequences, that is what people are going to reform or change their behavior. And 3 people in the committee say, okay, fine. If that's what you want to do, then go ahead with it. That is a bad way of coming to a conclusion, because they're going to go out and spread the negative message instead of coming and say, you know what, it was a very hard decision. As much as I do not agree that people should get memos all the time for coming to work late, that is the only way we felt that we were going to resolve this problem. And maybe also come and further say that once in this, when everybody has changed behavior, definitely we will have no more memos. Of course, there will be no more memos, but how about taking that instead of saying that committee made that decision? So it's very important for us to be able to come out with a joint agreement, even if we are disagreeing in the boardroom when we are making those recommendations and those decisions. Any question? Any experience that you would like to share that you have seen in problem-making process when you bring people to the table? What have been some of the things you have experienced? Anybody? Silas, Yato, Polycarp? Anyone? Helen, even if it's just to type it out. Maybe you can share your experiences. Able to share your experiences? Okay, so let's move on. I'll give a test at the end of it. Be aware, students, and I know people are always busy. I have a plan to do, do, check, and act. Very easy. If something goes wrong, need to be changed, need to be fixed, and delivered. If you are 100% confident, you should confident that your solution to the problem would be right, not once and every time. How are you going to get an approach to that situation? You plan, you do, you check, and you act. If anything, this is, what am I planning to do? What am I checking? What am I going to do? What am I checking and referencing? And how am I acting in that problem solving, whatever. So this is also another process that you can follow in problem solving. It is plan, do, check, and act. So the process will ensure to identify, develop, test, and implement. So the plan, identify and work on the problem. Do, develop a potential solution and this is very easy, every day we do this in the office, check how effective and efficient is the solution, whether it can be improved as well. You know, not everything can be improved incrementally. You see organizations, or even think about this very first smartphone that you had. What did it do? It enabled you maybe to make a call and send a text message, isn't it? Then after that, gradually, they developed smartphones. You know, they had a touch screen now instead of using the keypad. They enable more features for you to be able to use the internet and give it as a working tool and device. So there's always, everything that is under the sun can be improved. That's what we want to say. Even in organizations, any solution that you bring to the organization can incrementally be improved over time, because things also change internally and externally. That is why it's always important to look at your SWOT analysis from time to time, and then implement the final solution. So another process of problem solving. So it's the Pdca cycle gives confidence in your approach to problem solving and implement solutions to get the best quality output. So if I ask you tomorrow what is a Pdca, I'm sure you'll be able to say, you plan, what do you do in any of the stages? What do you check? How do you act? And how do you move on forward to be able to do that? So let's look at in details what each one of those processes. It's the same. Identify exactly what the problem is. Use cause and effect diagrams to know the root cause of the problem. Sometimes then we will look at some of those diagrams that you can use very, very shortly. Then structure your process at the root of the problem. List down all the information data you need that will help start sketching out possible solutions. You know, what am I doing? What am I looking at? And then think and generate possible solutions in the to-do stage. Select the best possible solutions from all the listed solutions. Implement a trial project with a small group. Sometimes, let's say we have a problem with, let's say, the banking industry, that we feel that our systems can be compromised, and we have seen someone can hack into our system. Hacking into our system means that people are able to siphon off money from people's bank accounts. So you already identify that problem. Maybe something has even happened. And then you start now thinking, what is the best possible solution? You want to farm up your back processes, and then you now start implementing. You have a system that is running because your customers need to access the platform. But in the back end is that you are seeing, how can we trisect this solution that we have found to this problem with a small group of people? Maybe you internally check it, and then you also call a few clients and say, this, we are trying to do this and this to able whatever. Can you do this to see whether you'll be hacked? Or can you do this to see whether it has reinforced the way that you get your money, or you do a transaction on a platform? Maybe this has happened in your organization. You have a big project that you need to cut over because you are trying to solve a problem, but you still retain the big platform. You test it until you are ready to roll over the new project, the new system that you would like to go live. Generate a trial design which is appropriate to the nature of the problem, like the solution that I have actually given. Okay. Any question there? Any question? Any question? My slides. You're very quiet. Hope I'm not just talking to myself. Okay, so in the check, measure how effective the pilot solution has been so far. List down all the learnings and analyze which solution can be done even better. Repeat, do, and check tools after implementing additional improvements. Once you get the final sketch and benefits for your problem, move to the final phase. And that phase is which one, guys? Someone tell me which is the final phase of PDCA? Silas, Helen, which one is that one? Priska. And that final stage is act stage. So we say, implement your final solutions, use Kaizen approach for continuous improvement. We know about Kaizen, the continuous improvement processes, and you can use other approaches as well that you feel that your organization can use. You know, there's the green, the Sigma, there's many others that you can use. Identify new solutions and improvements that are repeated frequently. That is why I keep on saying that O&M is a very important aspect in your organization and methods, looking at how what processes you have in your organization, looking at what people are doing, and naturally you become an agile organization that critically thinks all the time, preempting those problems or challenges that you will have in the business. If they come, you've already mapped up the risk. Look back at the plan phase and find out if the whole PDCA cycle needs further improvements. It's a never-ending cycle. We do our thing. So that is plan, do, check, and act. Any person who has a question, reaction? Do we do this in isolation in organizations? Is it easy to implement? Can it be easy to implement in your organization? Silas, please unmute and talk to these two processes of problem solving. Sorry to put you on the spot. I like to put people on the spot sometimes so that it's not only me who's speaking. Helen, Yato, Helen, Naomi, Priska. Anyone? Okay. So let's move on. Okay, let me see. Yeah. Okay, thank you. We can hear you. We're together. Okay. So plan, do, check, and act. That is how it actually now converges. You can see, even with just different, what do you think about when you see the flag? What do you think when you think about the padlock? What do you think about when you see the trophy cup? And what do you think about when you see a fuel pump? You actually a bigger thought process around the plan, do, check, act is simple and effective approach to problem solving. Very, very simple approach to problem solving. And I'm sure you do this all the time. And then it ensures the ideas are fully tested before fully implementation and makes a quality change, and for you to be able to make a quality change because you're doing it incrementally. You're not biting the whole bullet. You're saying, let's go back and test whether this is happening. And then the PDCA cycle can be used in product development, very much in manufacturing sectors and marketing sectors everywhere. The people who really they push products, a lot of product development. You give time to check what the to get into perfection before you take your products to the market or before you unveil them. It begins with planning, with a planning phase where the problem is identified, generated, potential solutions, testing and implemented the selected solution. Simple, fast, everybody would be very happy to have a simple solution where, especially in product development and product design, this is what we want to do before we get to the market, because it gives you an opportunity to fully test before you get to the market. Okay. If there is no question, we'll move on. There is another.
Hello.
Hi,
Madam.
Silas. Yeah.
Catherine, the question I have is this. Is this problems, some are routine and there's a known way of solving them, and some requires creative thinking. Is what you are discussing creative thinking in problem solving?
Yes. So what we are discussing, Silas, are some of the models that you can use in problem solving. And you have rightly put it is that, and I said from the beginning, is that some problems are very easy to solve, in an organization. They don't require this in-depth kind of processes for you to go into, but it is important for us to be aware as professionals is that if we are faced with a big with a magnitude, how do we dissect the problems? How do we go around picking one solution over the other? If we come with a committee of experts and we have different tasks, what do those tasks speak to that person? What is that person expected to do? I totally agree that problem solving needs innovativeness. Problem solving needs speed. Problem solving needs everybody involvement. But also what we are trying to say here in this webinar is that we know what problems are. We know how problems should be solved, but there is an approach to problem solving, the processes that we can use in problem solving. Do I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, though that it's not just one shoe that fits all. It might fit in your industry, it might not fit in your industry. So it is important for us to be able to appreciate what goes behind problem solving. By the time we are coming up and we see white smoke out there, a lot has gone in, isn't it? A lot has actually gone into solving that problem. Let's move on to the appreciation inquiry. It might look a bit very theory, but I believe that you're able to pick one or two things which is important. Even when you go and say, well, what kind of what models or what tools do you use to solve problems in your organization? You look smart and you look as if you know it. As board level, if a consultant comes and says, we have a problem I want you to solve, you'll ask them, so what are some of the tools that you can use? And they will tell you the process. They will be able to tell you about the Pdca tool. They'll be able to tell you about the appreciation inquiry. Then you know this is really someone who knows and understands how to solve problems. It's the same way when you want to bring change in your organization and you ask them, what tools are you going to use? And someone might tell you, I'll use the Kota, the Kota model of change management. And you ask them, digest it for us. Why have you taken Kota compared to another change tool? And then they'll be able to tell you because the kind of change you want to do requires this kind of an approach. It's the same problem solving when you bring in a consultant. So you say, why are you using this tool and not this other tool? How are my people going to appreciate it and bring it to the fore? Is that okay, guys? So let's appreciate that tools are important in everything that we do, and maybe to be able to reference back to get the best results that you can get in your problem solving. So, and of course, we look at the softer things of challenges to problem solving, why problem solving is difficult in organizations, what should we do when people resist change in problem solving. So those are some of the things that we'll continuously look at. And that's why I'm saying, please unmute yourself and be able to share. So appreciation inquiry, problem solving by looking at what is going right. So some things, it's not all the time that things go wrong. Things also go right. Some of the things that go right in organizations, for example, are it's not always broken. Majority of the times is when things are going right. So we have a good problem. Things are going right. Our sales have increased twofold. It's a good problem to have, but maybe what we do not have is the workforce to be able to help the people who are now overstretched. A good problem, isn't it? You know, we've developed a service or introduced a product that is fast moving, and now we become a trailblazer and we want to protect it. That's a good problem to have. You get what I mean? All of a sudden, we were bringing in investors. We were trying to look for investors for the last 2 years, and finally we've cleaned the deal. We've got more money now. We've got a good problem. Now we've got money to be able to implement. So it's not always that there'll be problems that negatively, but there'll be problems that bring now a good, we've done so well that we now have to start thinking how things are going on really right. Even in the good book says, when things are going right with you, the Bible, for us Christians, when things are going on right for you in your life, how are you preparing yourself to make sure that you are capitalizing on that, so that when challenging times come, that you can be able to stand on those good times and what the foundation that you have built to be able to weather that storm, isn't it? That's how it is even in organizations. So this appreciative inquiry, just as the name says, appreciative inquiry, we are inquiring, we are appreciating what is happening in the business. So problem solving, and I would like you to go back to the organization, or just even think as we are having this discussion, is that what is going right in your organization? And have you gone and say, why is it going right? What have we done to make sure that it is going right? We never think about it because the business and the pressure that is put on us by the business, we always firefighting sometimes. So appreciation means to recognize contributions, things, and people around us. Inquiry means to discover, explore, find new techniques and possibilities, so just as the name implies, so we whatever. Appreciation and inquiry combination together, we get a value tool to solve present situation and learn the ways to bring effective positive changes in the future. So for example, we've got a product that is fast moving and our sales have increased. So as HR, how can we help to ease off the pressure of that? As HR, what are some of the things that we can put in place? It's a question that I'm throwing out to plenary. What can we do? Yeah, exactly. Recognize that brought the good, the good problem. Yes, thank you. It's nice. It's almost very funny to say a good problem. We always say problem really. They make us very uncomfortable and out of our comfort zone. What else can we do as HR? What can we do? We can also do what? Make sure that we are bringing in more. We are actually doing what? We are looking at the manpower planning and saying there's a stretch and we need to bring in maybe a certain number of people. You come and say the ideal number will be 5 people to bring in this organization right now. Anything else? Internally, look at the reorganize maybe people to go into different departments, promote them internally, enlarge their jobs as long as it's not feeling the cost and strain in the business. So some of them. So appreciation inquiry has the 5D approach. Define the problem. I will not read word by word. I will just recap. The discovery phase, the dream phase, the design phase, and the delivery phase. So define, what are you looking at? What are we looking at? We are looking at 200 million that has been brought in by an investor, and they've got such good terms and conditions of the 200 million. We are almost feeling that we are floating and we are very happy about it. Define, what are you looking at? You're looking at these 200 million. Need to look at what has happened in the past and what is currently working well. Might dream what might be and take positives you identify through brainstorming creative and innovative ideas that the team could accomplish. And then at the design stage, look at the practicalities needed to support the vision. Start focusing on processes and the strategies that you need to put in place. Implementation requires a lot of planning and preparation, ensuring the dream vision that you had is on the focus point, and it should be supported, and it should be supported on how to sustain the dream. Any question there? We'll not read word by word on what is the 5D approach. What are we taking in? The definition of the problem, the discovery phase, and what is happening. You can find sources for potential problem-solving forms like escalation, machine failures, customer complaints, credit notes, which are too many being returned, customer service, quality assessment, and so on and so on. So problem-solving areas in your organization. And these are some of the go into the appreciative inquiry, because it gives you an opportunity to be able to reference all these areas, because could be we have escalations, people escalating. We seem to be having a problem there. How can we do that? Our machines are failing from time to time. We have noted that. So what are we going to do so for us to be able to do that? So I'll open up to plenary for the next session as we are moving along, is how do we solve problems in the organization? What is the steps and processes that we use to solve problems in the organization? Before we wrap it up in terms of the step-by-step approach. So we've seen some of the tools that we can use, the appreciation inquiry. We've seen the plan, do, act list. We've also looked at the problem-solving process. So what are some of the things that we can do? What steps do we take in problem-solving? Someone? Just as a quick highlight, steps to problem-solving process. And some of the tools that we can use. Silas, steps to problem-solving. How do you solve problems in your organization? When you think about those tools, and what have you done in the past?
Thank you. There are very many ways. But the first thing is that, one, the problem can be identified, or the problem can be reported. So once the problem has been identified or reported, you sit down with the person reporting, or the person identifying the problem, and you look for solutions. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Someone else? And you look for solutions, for the best solutions, using all the resources that you have, and the priority and the magnitude of the problem, and why the problem has come to us, and how come it is not in our competitors' yard, or things like that. So just you've wrapped it up very well. Steps in problem-solving process: identify the problem, gather information, and collect data, whether the problem is identified or reported, because that is how we get to know that there is a problem. The third one is developing and weighing the options of what from the data that we have collected, choosing the best possible options, plan and execute, and ensure that we take up follow-up actions. Why do we take up follow-up actions? Why is it so important to make sure that we have follow-up actions?
To prevent recurrence.
To prevent recurrence. Anything else? Prevent recurrence. Someone else?
To make sure it sticks. The solutions.
Exactly. Stick to the solutions. Yeah. That we all understand what it is. Follow up. Someone else? To be seen that we have done something that we are following up, and we are making sure that we are giving periodic feedback as to whatever. That's why many organizations have an M&D, M&D or business intelligence department, for them to be able to follow through some of these problems that are there. At department level, you would want to check, how are you guys feeling about this? Do you think we have adequately resolved this problem? If it was to come again, what would we do? What have we learned out of this? That kind of feedback. Always managers, let's be the ones who are always giving feedback, and also at the same time, let's be the people who we are always soliciting for feedback, because half the time is that we do not solicit for feedback as much as we should. I don't know why, because we are fearful, maybe the environment is not conducive enough, or we just don't know that it is important for us to solicit for feedback. Okay. So tools for problem solving, we will look at the 5. Anybody who has, so we have a problem, we brought in a team, we are very happy with this team. We've told them that they have to have a problem statement in there. They have even deduced their sub problems on how it's going to be resolved. They've put up all their best. They're excited about this problem. They're going to solve it. Then, what kind of tools can they use to solve problems? Anyone who has heard about these tools? The problem solving, the fishbone diagram. When you think about fish, maybe you're even going to enjoy some fish for lunch. The Pareto analysis, the 5 why technique. Anybody who has come across this, it's amazing, because these are things that you use in the office every day. Maybe you just don't know the name, that's what it is, Yeah, kindly activate my mic. I'm unable to speak. Then are you able to activate the mic for, I'm not able to. Then please make me a host. If you're there, then please make me a host so that I can put people to the panelist list. Thank you, Polycarp. So those are the 5. Researchers have developed various tools and techniques for problem solving. The 3 key tools that are used very, very, very often are the cause and effect diagram, which is the fishbone diagram, the Pareto analysis, and 5 why techniques. And then further, you ask, what? So how are you going to make sure with your consultant? How are you going to make sure that this is going right? And then what kind of tools are you going to give these people to be able to use to be able to solve the problem? So that's the time you know that this is a real good consultant in problem solving. They're not giving you just lip service. They're not just costing their XYZ fee just because they whatever. And you ask them, how have you used these tools in other institutions, and what were the end results? We must be brave for, we are looking for the experience, even with working with consultants, even internally. When you're capacity building people, you want them to have the knowledge and the tools and the experience to be able to do that. So you tell them, try keep trying, keep trying. These are the tools that we have in place for us to be able to solve some of the problems that we have. So let's look at them one by one. The 5 whys. In the 5 whys, techniques of problem solving, you have to ask a series of questions to identify the sequential causes of a failure that led to the problem. Then next, you have to find the cause-effect failure path. So you have to keep asking why questions, find each preceding trigger till you reach the root cause of the incident. Why? When did it happen? Why is that important to us? How is that going to help, So you are using the 5 why techniques until you get to the root cause of the incident. From there, you're able to come up with your problem statement. From there, your problem statement, you can further dissect it into subunits of that. And then you're able now to start doing your research. After you are doing your research, you're coming back, you're brainstorming, you are putting up different solutions, and finally you agree on one solution. So the 5 whys technique will help you find the cause-effect relationship between the different parts of the problem. You can conduct 5 why techniques for problem solving without using any elaborate worksheet diagrams or flow charts, as it does not entail a large detailed investigation requiring many resources. This is simple and stress-free method to reach the root cause of the problem. Why? You just keep asking, you just incrementally ask, why do people come late? Why don't they finish what happens when they don't finish their work on time? Why should we accommodate people coming late to work? Why is it only Department X is the one that has this problem compared to those other departments? So you're using the word why, until we find the root cause of the problem. So you can use the 5 whys technique to follow as follows for problem solving. So a very easy illustrated way. Anyone who would like to read for us? Anyone would like to unmute and read for us instead of me? Okay, so the first one is, you see, start with the problem statement of the problem and ask why it occurred. So then use the answer to the first why question and turn it into a second why question. Then to answer the second why question, turn into a third why question. And then repeat the steps till you have asked at least 5 whys till you reach the root cause of the problem. Even if sometimes why did this happen, is because sales people did not get their products in good time from the factory. What you do is that for you to be able to define the problem completely, you must ask at least 5 whys. It calls for a lot of deliberate way of doing it, instead of, oh, fine, it didn't get to the market on time. Why? Because the salesman, the production people did not produce on time. Okay, why? Okay, then you ask, why? Because the machine was broken. Then you find, okay, instead of just leaving, okay, fine, production needs to do better, but without going to find out what. So that is why it is important for us to be more deliberate in our approach in problem solving by asking the right questions and referencing a sequence and documenting that sequence for us to be able to solve the problem. Are we together? Are we together? The 5 why technique, at least ask 5 problems of a matter. Okay, great.
Can I ask you a question, Catherine?
Yes, Silas.
Ordinarily in industry situation, you not really have this process, let's say, defined the way you are defining. But I think what we normally do in solving problems, we end up actually using these ways. So it becomes very difficult. Let's say if you are taking this message to the team, that you must really know this 5 whys technique.
I agree with you.
Ordinarily use it
Yes.
as it is, but the decisions that you normally make will either come to that 5 whys objectives or the Pareto Principle or the cause and effect diagrams.
And I like that observation, and I see that you're following. And that's why I say that we use these, but and we come to the same conclusion. You know, we don't call it, the 5 why techniques, but inside the business, we are almost, if we are keen on problem solving, is that we will not just ask one question. Why did the products get to Naivas supermarket late? Because the delivery man did not, the track of the delivery man broke down. No, you'll go further, and maybe you're not saying, we are going to use the 5 why problem solving technique. We're already using them, but what I'm trying to say in this webinar is that we should be aware of of these tools and what their names are and how they help us solve problems. We're already using them in pockets. Some in pockets, we are even mixing some of these 3 tools, but we are saying these are the most popular used ones. You're already using them in the business, and for you to reflect back as a manager and see, even when your team is hard at work solving problems, you are smiling and saying, look at them brainstorming that problem. I think they're using the 5 why technique. And then you come and interject, well done, team, because I have seen that you have sequenced this problem and find out. And guess which tool you are using without even knowing? The 5 why technique. You get what I mean? Just as a thought of encouraging, is that whatever we use in the organization, whether it has a name or not, is that we are solving problems. And business is so rushed, you have no saying, come, Silas, I taught you the fishbone diagram way of problem solving. Why didn't you use it? You have the platform, and you have laid a platform of we empowering you to make decisions for problems that we have in this organization. How do you make decision? Put on your critical thinking hat, make sure that your emotional intelligence is in check and balance, and we're empowering you. And make sure that you're also using the resources that we have internally prudently to be able to solve these problems. So this webinars is just to incrementally remind us things that we know, and how can we go back and make sure that that is happening in organization. And if it is not happening, how can we bring the oomph and the end product to be known that I am a real solution provider to the business, because HR needs to be more reflective of being seen as a solution provider. So when you have this, so I'm saying that all this is this place. Are we together, Silas? They like that feedback you're giving.
Yes, thank you. We are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So thank you for that. So the 5 whys. The Pareto Principle, anybody who's aware of the Pareto Principle? Okay, so we all know that 20%, the Pareto Principle states that 20% of the input, the time, the resources, and the effort accounts to 80% of the output. And we've also said that one of the things that we know in organizations is that you are creating the 20% of your output is sometimes pushed by 20% of your output workforce is the one that really drives the business. Not the others that 80% are piggy banking, is that, but there are some key, the 20%, even when you do appraisals, you can see a curve, and they're the ones who really support the business. They are passionate. They do their work. They're self-driven. Not saying that the 80% are just standard performers, and the standard performer is a good performer. They do what is expected of them. They deliver on time. But this your 20%, they have something that they have seen that really triggers the business to another level. So it's the same for the problem solving. Is that says that 20% of your input accounts for 80% of your output, the rewards and the results. This means that whether it is a business or an individual, you get 80% of your results from just 20% of your time and effort. Therefore, 80% of your errors occur from 20% of activities. Once you realize this, it is easy to find the root cause for solving problems.
I have a problem with number 2. This means that whether it is a business or an individual, you get 80% of your result from just 20% of your time and effort. I think this works well in a stable organization which is performing. But if you go to an organization which is actually sinking, or which requires turnaround, the opposite is true.
That you need 80%.
You really need a lot of your time to ensure that you put systems in place for things to begin to work. And once the systems go, then this holds. That's my experience. I don't know, is Priska online? She should be able to confirm whether I'm right.
Priska?
Because I remember one time, when I joined Sasini, she found me really laboring, like a laborer. She fell for me. But had I not done that, we would not have turned around.
So what are some of the things that really you had to turn around strategically for you to be able to get to where you are right now?
One, I had to change the quality. The company was sinking. I came in, I joined when we were losing to the tune of 337 million Kenya shillings. So,
per year.
Per year. So we looked at the causes. One was high labor costs because of mechanization. So we have to implement the mechanization, bring in machines to try and cut down the labor costs. Then the one which really cost, we have 2-man machine and the tractor the tractors. Those are big machines for harvesting the tea. So for you to be able to introduce the big tractors, you have to cut a lot of tea. It is a slow process, and yet, unless you move very fast, you will not be able to turn around the company quickly. So you need to spend your time motivating people, ensuring that they work for slightly longer hours for you to be able to hit the targets. So those are two. That's the mechanization. And then 2 is the culture. If you are in an organization with a culture that, yes, this maybe this Mali, why are you struggling and this Mali is not yours? So you have to invest a lot of energy and resources in changing the culture. It's a long story. So I beg to stop there. But what I'm trying to emphasize is this. Sometimes when you are going into an organization that is sinking, you need to get almost 120% of your time to turn around things.
Yeah, I know. And we are not saying that, we are saying that organizations will be at different level of operation. There'll be startups, there'll be ones who are already at cruise level. And also we know that there are organizations which are early adapters and some are laggards. We see what's going to happen to the people who have taken off, and sometimes they miss those opportunities. It's the same in teams. The forming the norming, the storming, the whatever it is, those aspects that we talk about. And I totally agree. And when you make those hard decisions to solve problems, because I come into an organization, what am I expected to do? Whether it's a janitor, the lowest position, or whether it's the CEO, what is my brief here? And what impact am I expected to bring to the business? And where is the business operating at that time? I remember Silas and mechanization was put. I think the trade unions were up in arms, saying that you've actually caused heavy job losses in the organization, in the industry. And of course, I think there was a lot of labor and arrest and stuff like that. That's a big problem that you have to solve, and not just saying, well, we are going to bring in machines. Of course, I can believe there is a lot of negotiation going on in the background to show people the value for it, as what you have said, and also looking. I'm a business to make money. Bottom line, the shareholders return. You've guaranteed, you've asked them, yes, invest your money, I'll pay you a return. So the other thing is that the culture in an organization, if it is not trusting and if it is not open, you have a real uphill task to bring it in. So the real nux of the business is people and how we resolve that. The resources that we have and the resources that we are going to bring in. I can imagine mechanization bringing in new modern ways of doing business in any business calls for a lot of capex, because you are trying to say, if I invest in capex, my operational costs are going to come down by X amount, by maybe 20%, 15%, or whatever it is. And you are looking at the long term. So yes, some of the tools in problem solving again might not be applicable at that time. Like maybe the Pareto Principle might not be applicable in an organization that is going real changes. A change of a bonus structure is very simple. That's not it might affect people's motivation or whatever it is, or changes in a medical scheme, like we are going to compare. People will make noise on the corridors 2 days, but you've told them why we need to compare, because our loss ratio and stuff like that is high and stuff like that. But an organization that needs to do a turnaround, like KPLC, think about Kenya Power. Their ability to move from where they are right now to do a turnaround. Think about a company like Kenya Airways, uphill as well. A company that is not doing too well. Maybe there are many ones that are quoted in the stock exchange, might be. So it calls for much more higher level of problem solving, but the principles will still be the same. The processes that we take one, we solve the culture issue. It's ongoing, reflective, always asking the questions. CapEx, has it been approved by the board? It is 300 million. We need to show 300 million return back on investment in, maybe they've given us 2 years, we wanted 3 years. We have to work extra hard. So as business people, that's why I said, as HR, let's think about the business. Let's think about leading self, leading others, and leading the business, and the risk that comes with it, and preemptively solve those problems as they come. Okay. Someone else who would like to give some input? Real life situations, what you have done in the past, how you've been able to support the business, what you have seen. Then, are you there to make me a host, please, so that people can unmute themselves? Okay. I agree with that. So let's for that. So the Pareto Principle, every organization can cause 80-20 rule or Pareto principles to reduce or eliminate useless activities, errors, defects, and can significantly improve productivity to prevent problems. The 80-20 rule helps us focus on those activities that bring us to higher return and can cause the maximum errors. Implementing a strategy based on the 80-20 rule can lead to increased productivity, maximize profits, greater leisure time or work-life balance for people, and overall improvement for everyone at work. We want to bring some level of happiness, some level of joy in the organization. So the 80-20 Pareto rule can help you do that, okay? I won't go to the steps step by step. The notes are there. They're very rich for us to be able to read. But just as a recap is that decide how you will classify your problems. You can do this by taking into consideration the reasons, e.g. a customer complains. You can take some of the problems like customer complaints, customer survey, examining the rework aspects of your process. And then you make a list of all the preliminary list of the problem categories. Try to keep the preliminary categories to a maximum of 5 or 7. You know, this is the pattern we see forming. So make sure that you don't buy too much. It's like even when you give me too many objectives as an individual to work on during the year, like my KPIs, or my objectives or targets for the year, you don't want to give me a whole list like my description. You want to give me 5 key aspects that motivate me and I know that I'm able to achieve them. That's the same thing in the Pareto when you are keeping the preliminary list of problems of the categories, and also group them in families so that you see the pattern and you see where this problem comes from, which division or which department those problems are anchored in. Consider and decide on the time frame or other scope limitations on the material you will consider. Keep in mind that the time frame or scope you choose should represent the whole process that you are examining. You don't have the luxury of time. That's what I keep on saying. Now, for each of the problem category, tally the frequency of the occurrences. You can tally under the category other, you know, just tally and find out the frequency. Classification, the total occurrences, and find a cumulative percentage of dividing the percentages so that you know exactly what it is. It's more scientific, and people need to understand that for you to be able to solve problems correctly, you must be able to analyze them and come up with some bit of metrics. But sometimes you don't want to do that. How about if you don't want to do that, getting someone to do what? To come and help you from the accounts department to be able to do that. Okay. So the cause and effect is the fishbone. You know, how does a fish, you eat a fish nice, when you remove all the meat and you look at what it is, the cause and effect diagram is also known as the fishbone diagram, or by the founder, Ishikawa diagram. The fish and bone can help you identify all the problem causes and effects of the problem. So let's look at it. It is used in conducting complex problems. The main problem statement is written near the head or the mouth. You know, this is the main problem. And then just what we said, you go identifying the other sub-roots, you know, people coming to work late. What are the other sub-topics around people coming to work late? There's a strike that is going to be declared by the employees. That is your main problem. So, and then after that, you go now writing the other secondary causes into the bones under the main category. An easy way, and it's also very illustrative and very easy to work with and very fun to work with as well. You know, the big problem And then the other smaller bones, you write main categories. Following are the steps to create a fish diagram, and you can also go back to your organization and see whether it works. Define the problem statement again, specifically writing near the mouth or the head of the fish. Draw the branches from the fish, bigger bones, and write the name of each major category of each bone. So let's take a case like what Silas has said. You know, revamping the organization. You know, revamping back to. So the bigger ones are machinery. The bigger bones are making sure that we downsize our workforce. Mechanization, what does that mean? So those are the big ticket items, like we like to call them in business. And then from there, the smaller branches of the fish, you know, the fish is complex. The smaller ones you are writing, if we are going to mechanization, what does it mean exactly? What are some of the, write the names of the causes of mechanization and what are the problems around mechanization? What are the problems around these big says of major problems, of smaller problems in mechanization? You know, what are the causes of injecting more money into the business as a major problem? What are the causes of those problems? And then start now finding the solutions. You know, once you do all that, now get deeper into analyzing the problems, drilling down each root cause to prevent future problems, and now coming up with the solutions of what it is. Okay, so very easy to use the fishbone problem, the fishbone problem. Okay. So question, the fishbone problem was developed by who developed it? Who developed it? Anyone who
Kaoru Shikawa.
Fantastic, Polycarp. Thank you very much. Okay, yeah. So let's look at any question in the tools that you can use. How many tools have we looked at? The 3 tools. The 3 tools that we have looked at that we can use to solve problems before we come to the scientific problem of solving problems. The first one is even on your Polycarp. The first one is even on your screen.
The 5 whys.
The 5 whys. Another one.
You have the Pareto, then you have the fishbone.
Fantastic. Okay. How have you used them in your organization, in isolation, in pockets? Any big problem that you have solved over time?
Yeah, I've encountered, I think, all. So it depends on the problem. Like we had an incident, and I hope I'm not disclaiming and showing too much. We had an incident where there was wrong packaging done. So usually convert beers from crates to cartons. Now, when the conversion was being done, and it happened that the cartoning, they had less beers inside. So instead of 24, there are boxes that had 18 and so on. So the one that we used was the 5Y, which greatly brought us to the root cause. Now from the 5Y, we moved on into the fishbone, which enabled us to change the process, to look at the personnel, the trainings and whatnot. So we interchanged them. When we used the Pareto one, Pareto usually comes to highlighting redundancies. So we had processes where there was a bit of duplication. Now the Pareto was what highlighted that particular duplication, because we just highlighted the tasks, which is a 20%, and we found out that there was actually tasks being done by different personnel, but they're the same task.
Are you in the meeting, my dear? My employer?
Yeah.
Am I?
Are you in the meeting?
Silas, will you mute? Okay, Polycarp, and everybody now got to understand what it is. Did people appreciate that? Were there any consequences of were there complaints from customers that we found 18 cases of beer, 18 bottles of beer instead of 24?
So it would have been even worse, because this was actually an export.
Wow.
Sorry for that. It was an export packaging. So we got to the problem before the trucks left the factory.
Yeah.
So as Kenyans, the first thing is usually who is to pay. But the fishbone helped us to actually see one of the biggest issues was actually the process, not the people.
Exactly. There was no fraud. There was no intention of fraud, and that's the thing. What's always the intent? What is the intent, and where did the problem come up? And also now tightening the processes in terms of 18, 24, 12, 24, whatever it is, and to make sure, And let's always not, the thing is that problem solving, and if you won't take anything from this webinar this morning, is that let's never be reactive to a problem that has happened. We're always reactive. Who's the cause of this problem? It's Catherine. Put Catherine aside first. Let's solve the problem. While Catherine is seated there at the corner thinking, my gosh, what's going to happen to me? Bring in Catherine, solve the problem. You don't focus on the person. Nobody, we are here, all of us. What cannot be done if we don't have people? But the first reaction is always to put the blame on the person before finding out what the problem is all about. If we chant that analogy and say, what happened? Okay, how many people were involved in this, whatever, 5 of us? Okay, so what part did you have to play? Find out. If it's one person, again, what part did you have to play? It's a better way of continuing having greater relationships in the organization, because that is what we want to have. We want to maximize creativity in every problem-solving situation. We want to see how can we put our processes better, increase productivity, maximize on profits, whether you are a profit-making company, whether you are the government, or whether you are an NGO, there's always a way to maximize profit. It might not be money, but you're maximizing profits in other areas. You have greater convergence around work-life balance for people. And that's what you want to achieve as HR, is that people come motivated, energized, happy to be working for you. So that is what it is. Problems will come, but let's not react too much around, yes, a problem has happened, but yes, maybe someone will have to take the slack and the consequences of it. But how about showing diplomacy in how we solve problems when they happen at the workplace? Okay, great. Okay. Anybody else who would like to whatever before we go to the last part of before calling it a day in problem solving? In problem solving. So there are scientific methods, and unfortunately, I don't want to be too involved. We cannot shy away from some of the scientific methods, and we'll see you use them all the time. Science. What is this science that we have to use to solve problems? And how do we come to doing it? So there's the intuitive method, there's the short model formula for scientific method, there's the full model formula for scientific method, and they all come to the division of scientific method. Anybody who has come across this? Intuitive, short model formula, full model. Maybe we've had them, but maybe we've not paid attention. Okay. Intuitive thinking enables you to unconsciously utilize hundreds to many thousands of bits and pieces of knowledge you possess in memory. You know, my intuitive memory. If it serves me right, have you ever had people say that? If I recollect very well, so you know, at the back of your mind, many intuitions may be important. So too many errors of intuition can hurt your success, relationship, or reputation for problem solving and decision making skills. An example of this. Intuitive memory. Intuitive memory, an example of this. Polycarp, anything that comes to mind?
Off the top of my mind is
Yeah.
looking at repetitive processes
Mm-hmm.
where someone may have the mentality of one shoe fits all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and which ideally is not the scenario, but the fact that you've been doing the same thing over and over again, you may tend to have the same, looking at the same solution for different problems.
Exactly. You analysis by paralysis. Is that what we say? Is that we analyze so much, sometimes we miss the opportunity to be able to run and whatever. Sometimes gut feeling. Have you ever had your gut feeling and says, this is it. I know it is right. And this is what I'm going to run to. And then you say, no, let me analyze it a little bit more. I think I should. And the opportunity, what happens is that an opportunity misses you. Let's take, for example, and maybe in business is Airtel and Safaricom. What's the big difference between those two telcos? What's the big difference we all know from a business point of view? Silas, Frida, Helen? Can I
We are thinking about the word intuition. Eh?
Yes.
I'm just thinking that sometimes you are in the midst of trying to solve a problem and something just comes into your mind outside the box completely. And when you shout that solution, it ends up solving a problem. So it's something which comes at the spur of the moment. If you are really concentrating in listening to, let's say, to issues that are being raised, then something just clicks in your mind and it provides a solution. Don't you think that is intuitive?
Exactly. Your gut feeling. You know, like in coaching, and now I like, because I'm very passionate about coaching, is that in coaching, you don't give your coachee any solution, even if you know that if they just turn left, the solution is there. You know, you take them through that journey of self-discovery and reaching their potential. And I'm telling you, the aha moment, like what Polycarp and Silas you've just alluded to, is that we didn't see it like this. Oh my gosh. Finally, we have that one solution. You know, intuitive, you know, your mind, your subconscious mind is awakened and you see, oh my gosh, we're able to do this. A real good way. It's a scientific, you know, your mind is wired differently. Everybody's mind is wired differently. But if you sit down and reflect and it really comes to the fore, you feel very happy about it. Okay. Short model formula for scientific method. A shorter formula is needed as it is easily remembered. It's an easily remembered formula. It is important it is important, but urgency is so great that there is no time to go through a long process. It is available in every place or situation. Give me a solution, give me an example of a short formula that you have worked in organization that confirms that it's easy to remember. It is important because of the urgency. The urgency is so great to solve this problem. And we can't go through that process of asking, oh, Catherine, please give your answer, give us your suggestion, give us this, you know. Problem solving, it calls for a lot of urgency. What would be a situation that would be around that? It is available in every place or situation. Availability would be a policy referencing, it is available. In SharePoint, it is what? What would be an aspect of using the short scientific, the short formula? Anyone? So that we really come up with good examples, with examples to reference this even at the workplace. The urgency is so great. What is so great in businesses all the time? Anyone? Better just call in order of where we are. Anyone who can give very urgent, whatever, so that we save a business situation. You don't want a hard case study from me, do you? For the afternoon, for you to go think and ask for us to discuss tomorrow, do you? Anyone? Urgency?
Catherine, mind giving us like an example?
Yes, okay. I can give you an example around, take an example of urgency around COVID. What happened? COVID. When we were all told, go and work from home, what happened? The urgency was to keep teams safe, isn't it? And then after that, you go and now start thinking of this process. If we ever work remotely, how does it look like? Maybe you didn't even have a policy of remote working, but a directive has been passed by the government and maybe your senior management team that this COVID, we don't have a cure. We need to make sure that our teams are safe. Please go. The urgency was there, you know, or even take a plane that has fallen. I mean, it's lost radar and there's a crisis. There's urgency to bring in, of course, we activate the crisis and everything, and for us to be able to get through that, whatever. The long process, of course, there are processes to be followed, but the urgency is so dire, we can't. We have to do what needs to be done. Or just think of your product has been maligned in the market. There's urgency to issue a holding statement, and then after that, redo really quickly before damage has been done. We agree?
Makes sense, yeah. So in that line, so there's something that usually happens in the final quarter, which is in production, especially in FMCG, where it's the peak. So one of the things that we had to come up with a short, an immediate solution was to have a contingency plan, to have staff who have been vetted and who can be called upon in the 11th hour, and also have PPE ready for them, training ready for them. Basically, staff who can plug and play. Team, can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you, Polka, but you had disappeared.
Oh, I
But
thought
we're
my
talking
net.
about FSMG.
Yeah. So it's basically we go to have contingencies. We have to have staff whom you can call upon, and also you have everything ready for them. So you have like a buffer. Let's say it is PPE, maybe shoes, reflectors. You have a buffer of them, and you have your trainers who can just come in and train the staff a quick one so that they can get in and start operating. Can
Kana
see Madam
mwalimu
Kat.
amepotea. Polka,
Yes, sir.
inaonekana mwalimu amepotea bwana.
Wow. And the time is almost up, yeah?
Yeah. But are other people hearing you?
Yes, clearly. Yeah, we can hear him.
Oh, Salama.
The mwalimu is the one who is lost, eh?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, she can give us time to do some few things.
This way now you multitask.
Yeah, it's difficult to multitask with this mwalimu bwana. You try this, she's already moved to another. It's very difficult. I found it very difficult.
Catherine, you're on mute.
Oh,
You're
there
on
she
mute,
can
Catherine.
be.
My
See,
power went off at home. I'm so sorry about that. But I'm sure you went on with the class.
yes.
Yes.
The last quarter of the manufacturing.
Yeah. So it's usually called the peak, where think of an alcohol farm. So that is when the Kenyan's throats are more slippery. So the sales are a bit higher, alcohol sales.
Yeah.
So we just need you have to ensure you have teams that are trained, teams that are experienced, who can be called upon to come and plug in whenever there's perceived need.
So on short-term basis, are they experts, or they just push the sales and make sure that the products are available?
They push sales, they push the packaging, they push the loading, the offloading.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah. So you guys are running all the way to the bank now.
We can say that, but we're hoping for a bottom up.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And of course, to capitalize on the first quarter and the second quarter, which can be a bit slow, to push within those whatever. So sometimes your last quarter actually aids your first quarter. Exactly. Yeah. Silas, what were you saying as well? Did I miss something from you and the rest?
Not really. We are just saying how your disappearance could help us multitask, because you can't multitask when you are giving the lecture. You are so fast.
Oh, I went to look for another solution, you see, and that's urgency, scientific urgency of it's real practical right now. Yeah, it's really raining where I am, very cats and dogs. Anyway, so the last one before we call it a day, and just us to have a recap on what our takeaways and input, is the full model formula for scientific method. So there are 3 ingredients which considered necessary to apply this method, and that is the creative, non-logic, logic and technical methods, procedural principles and theories, attributes, and thinking skills. It's more elaborate and takes a longer time. It means that you really have a problem that you have to solve. And we must be all on the same, all hands on deck. We need to find, let's say, implementing your strategy. It's no mean feat for you to say, I have a 5-year strategy that has been approved by the stakeholders or the board. It has been unveiled. The real work begins, doesn't it? And how are we going to monitor it? Creative, very logical methods of how to be able to do it. So if we talk about unveiling our strategy and unpacking it and looking at all the pillars and being able to implement it, what have we done in the past? what has stopped us from implementing it? What are some of the challenges or problems that we have come across, and how have we achieved some of them? Let's talk about strategy implementation. Or we just leave it for the big boys up there. After all, it is theirs. Us guys will just continue doing what we need to do. And why do strategies have to be redone after every couple of years? Some 3 years, some 5 years, short term, long term, medium term. Why? Let's talk about strategy and formulation as one of the ways, scientific methods of problem solving. Anyone? Anyone?
Yeah,
Anyone?
I think you need to revise strategies every now and then, just to reflect in the changes in the environment. And
Changes
not just the environment alone, but you see, if you look at PESO analysis, you must really keep on reviewing your strategy to reflect the PESO what? Analysis. Yeah.
Exactly. Where was I? I was going to show this one in terms of the SWOT analysis, just like what you have said in the full scientific way, is that SWOT analysis and the PESTEL and any other tool that you use is useful. Is useful, and is not limited for only profit-seeking organization, profit-making. Those are the corporates. SWOT analysis may be used in any problem-solving situation when a desired end state objective has been identified. Hence, it is also to be used for problem-solving in non-profit organizations or government units, and also for individuals. I believe that you have your own SWOT analysis, and you'll be able to look at it. You look at it periodically, and maybe just towards the end of this year, maybe you're going to take time to say, what have I achieved? What were some of my threats, weaknesses, opportunities, and things that I really came across. SWOT analysis may also be used in pre-crisis planning and preventive crisis management. So I'd like us to stop there for today, and just a recap before I give a short assignment on what we have done, so that we can start it as a recap tomorrow. I hope some of us who are not able to unmute will be able to do a recap and give us their case study feedback tomorrow. Any questions, any reactions? Was it useful? What are your takeaways from the first day of effective problem solving at organizational level? Feedback? Feedback. I like to get feedback.
Very nice presentation.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I think we have really reminded us that everything that we are doing in our organization, we may not have, let's say, steps to follow, but we are covering all that is required in what being good problem solvers.
Exactly. Yeah. Making sure that you are critically analyzing the problems, and you are putting on your critical thinking hat to be able to solve problems. Thank you. Someone else? The tools that we use might not be calling them out of what it is, but we are totally using them. Yes, Polycarp?
Yeah. From my end, it was a very important reminder. Yeah, we've used some of these tools, be it in school, be it in trainings, ideally on ground. But it's one of the biggest reminders that rang home was you deal with the problem, not the person. Because the first thing that usually happens from a HR and operational perspective is who is to pay for this. other than looking at the whole issue 360. So
Exactly.
to me, this is very applicable, and I'm going to transfer the same to my team.
Thank you. Fantastic. Okay. Anybody else? If there's no one else, I would like for takeaway this afternoon, use the 5 whys. Take because we are not going to be together in a case study, is that using the 5 why approach in problem solving, pick a problem in your organization, whether in HR or an operational problem, analyze it, and you will share with us how you, the 5 whys from the problem, how you deduce the 5 whys, and the solution that you might implement from there. Is that clear? I've given you a very simple tool, 5 whys. I've even given you people coming late, why? Solution, you know. So that's the whatever. So we'll start with analyzing that to make it practical. And then after that, we finish the rest of the webinar tomorrow. So thank you very much. Have a blessed afternoon. We hope to see you back tomorrow, bright and early at 8:30. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. You're free to leave. Thank you, Helen. Bye. See you tomorrow. Then you may end the webinar.